What's up, everyone? Thralls of Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and I have an album review for you. Once again, this one is brought to you courtesy of Screaming Toilet. Again, fun site full of reviews, articles, podcasts, etc. Lots of pop culture-centric themes. Definitely check it out. Today, I am reviewing Monstrath's debut album, The World Serves to Evil. This came out last year on Downfall Records. Once again, I think we just got it here, so this is relatively new to us. This band is from Sao Paulo, Brazil, home of Sepultura, so we're definitely familiar with that town. They formed in 2015, and again, this is their first album. Now, it opens up with Demon Soul, and it kind of comes in with this very creepy intro that has some weird layered noises, lots of ghastly vocals mixed with growls, and right away I instantly thought of Slayer's Hell Awaits, just because there was a good little intro like that in Hell Awaits, obviously. And then we're greeted to their overall sound, which is very much straight ahead, thrashy, modern death metal, but still very much in the vein of bands like Christian and Malevolent Creation, I would say. Now, the vocals, I think, are really interesting on this, in the sense that they really don't necessarily match the music for the most part. They kind of sound more like Nurgle. They're a little bit mid-range growl, and they're more of the almost kind of ghastly kind. They're really not low guttural roars for the most part. Sometimes it fits, sometimes it doesn't. There's a lot of parts where it doesn't, though. This is very blast beat driven, straight ahead, chuggy, thrashy, palm muted, machine gun guitar style death metal. Right away also reminded me of Deicide in terms of how they just keep going at you full steam ahead. There are some cool groovier sections in this song, but for the most part it is blast beat central. Now you get a sense of the production on this, which is very polished, but I think a little scrubbed too clean of some grit. The guitars, though, they have a cool gritty tone, very thrashy, there's a good crunch to them. The bass is all but invisible on this, and that even goes to the bass drums. They're kind of lackluster click, really. Actually, they're pretty clicky, which is something I generally don't like in death metal. I like a good solid punch to the bass drum. This one was kind of missing that. Now, the next track, Incubus in Church, had a little bit of Suffocation-esque flair. Definitely a lot of palm muted chugs that were very similar to them, but they kind of lacked the sense of groove that Suffocation definitely has. Now, this is where the vocals just didn't mix with the music for me. There are parts in here where it kind of calls for quicker cadences, which this guy's cadence is generally very slow and deliberate. It also could have called for some lower vocals or lows to highs in here. This guy kind of has like kind of one range that he goes across. It just seems like there should have been some more dynamics to his vocals just to make moments stand out a little bit more, or to match the intensity of the music, because this guy's vocals would probably favor a different style of metal, maybe black and death metal, something where the quick-fire vocals aren't necessarily needed as much. They scream dramatic rather than brutal, I guess you could say. Now, the lead work in here is pretty good, but it's very copy and pasted. A lot of them favor the same sort of style, very melodic, which I definitely appreciate in more brutal music, because it's nice to get a kind of a break from that and not just go to the standard squealy dive bombs and such. Lots of cool harmonies in here, but they feel kind of copy and pasted across the album, save a few moments. Now, smashed in between two interesting interludes that involve throat singing and just sort of creepy samples you'd hear on maybe a Halloween sampler, you have Child of God, which I think is a standout on this track. This one brings that thrashy sort of death metal that Vader brings, very tight chugging right in the beginning, and then this actually shows off some melodic death metal flair. There's a whole riff section on here that definitely reminded me of At the Gates, except with maybe like Hour of Penance's pace. So very blast beat driven, which is definitely a thing on here. This album definitely loves blast beats. It is almost always blasting at all times. Some of the songs kind of just get lost in the fact that they have a very mechanical, stiff feel where it's just favoring that blast beat and machine gun ripping the entire time, and you kind of lose a sense of variety in the album for the most part. It gets kind of formulaic after a while, unfortunately. But the back half did have some really cool songs on it that were a little bit different, but possibly should have been scattered in the album at different points just to break it up, because the front half was incredibly blast beat driven, and it once again got kind of stale after a while. Crushed Faith actually opens up with a cool tribal rhythm, and no machine gun guitars this time, more or less just a really cool slower riff play that was really awesome. It really stood out. What I thought was really cool was, after a while, the bass comes in, and you can actually hear it this time because this guy is doing some really cool kind of shreddy stuff with his bass. So when the guitars aren't shredding, the bass will, apparently. This song is notably more groovy. There's definitely more dynamic riffs in here, more memorable riffs. It slows down for a minute to let the song breathe, and the vocals actually sort of match this one because his cadence isn't particularly fast to begin with, so a slower song actually favors his vocals pretty well. And I have to say, the solo on this song I thought was particularly better than a lot of the other solos on here. This one seemed longer, more intricate, a little bit more technical and shreddy, not just, playing a lot of cool melodies, which are awesome and all, but it kind of got bland early on, and I kind of wanted to hear a little bit more from the guitarist, and this solo in particular, he definitely showed up. Chains to the Soul was another standout on here. This one opens up with a cool syncopated chug, definitely reminiscent of a band like Decapitated and how they pretty much just know how to work those syncopated chugs so well. Right away, I noticed they had a different vocalist doing a guest spot in here because he was notably deeper, and his cadences were a little bit different, and I thought that was really refreshing. And unfortunately, I thought maybe this guy should have been the vocalist in the first place. He honestly fits the band a little bit better than the one they have. Not that that guy is bad, it's just his style is notably different and doesn't really match the music. Now, I think this song and Crush Faith should have been separated by a little bit because they are kind of similar in a sense. Now, Chains of the Soul does have some more blast beats in it, but they're a little bit different. They're a little bit more old school death metal, so kind of that really fast thrash blast beat rather than the very mechanical, modern death metal blast beats. And there's an interesting electric violin solo on this, which I thought was kind of cool, even though for the first part of it, I kind of thought it was a saxophone, or like an electric sax, which I know the band Shining has definitely used before. Bag of Bones was another cool one. This one, once again, opens up with a massive riff, and now you have 3 songs in a row that are definitely favoring more groove versus the very blast beat driven first part of this album. But it was still refreshing to hear a little bit more in terms of what's all in their wheelhouse. It just should have been, once again, spread out a little bit differently on the album. There's a nice, cool, galloping, thrashy chug to this with some cool guitar melodies and harmonies that I really thought were just kind of strange and interesting. And I have to say, there was just a slight blackened touch to it, which once again made the song stand out a little bit more. There is a part in here that teases almost what could be a really awesome chuggy breakdown, but that breakdown really never happens. It never gets in that full breakdown beat. It just sort of teases the chuggy riff and then moves into another part, which I think they could have used that breakdown to work to great effect because there really aren't a lot of breakdowns like that on this album, and that, again, would have been a cool standout moment. And the way this song in particular moved definitely reminded me of a band like Blood Red Throne and how they are very chug first, but they know how to work those chugs into cool rhythms and melodies and just make them impactful and just punch you in the face. I kind of wish more songs like this earlier on in the album because I kind of did get bored earlier on, but I like how it changed gears. It just should have been paced differently. So, all in all, I'm going to give this 3 stars. I think this is a pretty good band. It's very chuggy, thrashy, straightforward modern death metal. There aren't a lot of frills in it, but there are some cool ideas in there, and a lot of it came down to pacing issues and where it got repetitive, and the vocals didn't really match in a lot of spots. I think they should favor some quicker cadences in spots so it would add more intensity to these already intense moments. But this is definitely an album I would jam again, and I would definitely check out more stuff by them. So, if you like the review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do shit like this all the time. Thanks for watching, guys.